We are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider and Sports Talk 1050, WTKA, online at WTKA.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side. And then, of course, the man that has come to be the face and the voice of this hour, Tuesday mornings, the 7 o'clock hour, former Michigan offensive lineman Jack Miller. And we are going to spend some time today breaking down the trenches like we do every week. But a highlight of this week is to let Jack know he was right and everyone else was wrong, including Borges. Jack Miller was right. Everyone else was wrong. See, isn't that the way you want to start things out, Jack?
That's so great, Sam. Thank you so much. Now I'm very comfortable and excited to get this segment underway. Thank you for acknowledging that.
I'll tell you what we're talking about a little bit later on, but of course, always better to have one of these sessions coming off of a win. And Michigan beat Rutgers 20-13, but it looked different than the first few victories. And so we will dig into that. Before we do, Jack is brought to you by the Highland Group. So Jack, why don't you tell folks about Highland, what it's all about?
Yeah, sure. Highland Group, a privately held, family-run insurance brokerage offering business insurance, employee benefits, personal lines. I've been around 85 years, all throughout the Midwest, down into the South. Anybody looking for insurance options out there, love to talk to you. Hylant.com, HYLANT.com.
So, Jack, I mentioned it looked different. Michigan spent the first 3 games plowing through opponents, plowing over opponents, just utterly dominant with their run game. The first series made it look like last Saturday's game was going to be more of the same, but I think the stat was 64 yards rushing in the first drive, only 48 after that. And no points after the break. So they had to hold on. They had to hold on and to really lean on and rely upon the defense to save the day. And the defense was able to do that.
Yeah, it didn't look the same. You're right about that. Save for that first drive, Rutgers seemed to have their number offensively. And, as the game went on and got into the second half, which I think, if I'm right, there were only 2 first downs in the second half or something like that. Rutgers, it was interesting. I think in the first series, the first half in particular, they were content to sit in, a base defense and try to figure out what Michigan was going to do, which seemed to be a little shocking, I think, to everybody, because we knew what this team's all about, trying to run the ball. And then as the game went on, Rutgers just dared them to throw, right? They loaded the box up. Safeties were coming downhill really, really fast, filling their gaps. Linebackers were blitzing, shooting their gaps. And they were daring Michigan to throw the ball. And Michigan really didn't have any answers for it, which we can get into that later. But, yeah, no, it didn't look the same. Like you said, you take a win, even an ugly win, right, and try to build from it and move on. And, the reality of it is we're going to figure out this week what we're dealing with here, right? We've been this was the one that was circled on the calendar to say, all right, if we're legitimate or not, we're going to figure out when they go to Camp Randall. And here we are. It's Wisconsin week.
No doubt. And just a word before we start getting into the film, Jack, I mean, offense, you don't often, at least fans don't often talk about offense being a part of defense, but it is. Yeah. It is, especially when it comes to sustaining drives, giving your defense an opportunity to gather itself, maybe work on maybe make adjustments on the sideline, more than anything else to, get re-energized, get refueled, to rest. And Michigan's defense didn't have a chance to do that in the second half of the game, which makes their ability to really stand up and make those crucial stops to save the game down the stretch makes it all the more impressive.
It does. And to your point, they did step up when they needed to at the right times to close that game out. And there's a little bit of bend, don't break at the end there. And they bowed up when they needed to. But like you said, if the offense isn't clicking and you're going 3 and out every time, you're not taking any time off the clock. You're not allowing your defense to rest and get re-energized and make adjustments on the sidelines. And, it's a momentum, it's an emotional game, right? And when you're getting pounded on that, that wears on you. We've been the benefactor of that throughout the season. We've been pounding on other teams and controlling the line of scrimmage, owning the clock and time of possession, what have you. Rutgers found a way to do that. And by the way, I think it's important to note, I think that's a much better Rutgers team than historically we think about Rutgers, right? Greg Schiano's a tremendous coach. He's recruited well, and they got a good scheme there. They got a good system. Those guys are well coached and played hard. So, it's not the traditional Rutgers we think about. And they came out and played hard. Now, like you said, you take a good win, or not a good win, but an ugly win, and you move on with it, right? And that's all you can do, and try to build. Hopefully getting exposed a little bit in that second half in particular is a teaching lesson, right? There's things to learn from that. Hopefully they do.
Right. And so let's start off with defense, because I know we normally start off with offense, but I just feel like we got to spend so much more time on offense this week. So sure. Let's start off with defense, and let's start off with the play where Greg Schiano fourth and short, and he tries to fool the defense. A little trick play, a little trickeration there, and boy, the Michigan defense, the defensive front in particular, they were not fooled one bit. So I'm going to bring that up on your screen. All right. And so
you said it, Sam. The defensive line's not fooled at all here. It's 4th and 1, little trickery. They're taking their time getting set up. You wonder if this is something that Michigan saw a week before, even last year in their film study, right? Because the defensive line is not fooled at all. They got a guy in the backfield looking to the sideline like he's looking for the calls. Defensive line is set. They're ready. They're low. They're ready to what they call root hog, which is just dive down basically at the offensive lineman's legs and not allow them to get movement and let the quarterback sneak go anywhere. And you see look at them. They get lined up right there. All sorts of fake confusion going on. Everyone pinches down and blows the center back. It's a good stop. And you wonder how prepared they were for that, because it looked like they knew that was coming.
Yeah, Mozzie Smith and Chris Hinton there right in the middle of the defense. They completely destroyed this play. So they didn't make the tackle, Jack. This is how it goes, right? You guys in the trenches don't get the glory, but those guys made that play.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They're used to it. But, everybody, you see Josh Ross and everybody just converge right at the middle of that offensive line as soon as the ball snaps. So, that tells me that they had seen a 4th down play like this from Rutgers at some point and had it in their game plan to watch out for this.
Man, we're going to jump to the second half here and talk about Aiden Hutchinson, because every game you feel him. And this game was no different. Another sack to the tally. What is it? 5.5 sacks on the season now for Aiden. Ira, I think it's 5.5 for Aiden. He continues to pile them up, and they were doing everything they could to try to limit him a little bit. They were chipping him. They got one good chip on him in the game, but this was one time where they weren't able to keep Aiden from the quarterback.
Yeah, Aiden just continues to impress, I think, everybody as the season has gone on. His ability to be physical at the point of attack and then run like a linebacker like he does and change direction is scary. But, you wouldn't want to play action boot out to his way, right? The tight end's on him and fakes like it's run, right? So he kind of latches onto him for a second there and then tries to throw him away as he tries to get out on a route. Then they send a back across his face who's going to go out into the flat and try to get the ball. Once the quarterback rolls out, he's looking to dump it to him. But Aiden has his way with this tight end here who's really not doing all that much. And that's not an athletic enough quarterback to run away from a guy like Aiden Hutchinson. A gutsy call trying to run a play action boot over to 97 there. And, he makes him pay for it.
Right. So, that's early in the third quarter. And you can still see right around there. I mean, still momentum on Michigan's side, but man, they found something defensively in a second, because they ran that sort of power read. We counted them up yesterday, and there were 17 or 18 sort of power scheme plays in the second half of that game.
Yeah,
Jack, and so that wasn't something they came into the game saying we can do.
No,
it was because they actually ran a couple in the first half, and they were moderately successful. But early in the second half, they realized they had something, based off their power play.
Yeah, and you wonder why or what tipped them off that they could do something like that, right? Michigan's defense sees it in practice all the time. They see power schemes coming at them all the time. You would think that is something that they're well equipped to defend against. I don't know if it was a formational thing or a personnel mismatch, but to your point, Sam, they did. They thought that they had something there, and they executed it in the second half.
Yeah, they certainly did. And then you started to see down the line, you start to see fatigue really be an issue, which is why I say for those guys to be able to bow up at the very end and make the plays necessary, to win the game. And so that's where I'm going to go. Not the strip play, but this is the 18th power scheme. Again, folks, the 18th power scheme of the half. And they brought the formation tight. I thought, Jack, that they hadn't done that in all of their power variations during the game. But there was one other time where they brought it in tight. But this was, I thought it kind of helped Michigan out a little bit for them to draw everyone into the box like that, put more hats around the football.
Yeah.
And Michigan definitely took advantage of those extra hats around the football on this. This is 4th and 2 with 5:30 remaining in the game. The 18th power scheme of the game, Jack.
Yep. You need a big stop here. Get your defense off the field. It's really well done by Chris Hinton. He's on the back side of the power there and just crawls over the back block or underneath the back block from the center, gets down the line as Hill Green fills his gap. You see him just kind of they almost miss. Something happens here on the front side of this. It doesn't look properly blocked by Rutgers. And Hill Green's kind of sitting there, sheds off the tight end who's really not on top of him and gets downhill to make a play. It really, really well done. You see the effort. You talk about fatigue, right? This is late in the game. These guys have been on the field all day. And for a guy like Chris Hinton, right, a defensive lineman who, historically, we know those guys, when they go hard, they're a lot to deal with. And sometimes they don't always go that hard because they get tired out there, right? But for him to bow up, late in the game like this when you need a stop and just an effort play by him to come down the line, make the play. Hill Green fills the gap the right way. You just need guys to step up and make plays and when it matters the most. Those guys do.
Dude, you mentioned being tired. And I that was one of the things that jumped out to me on that play, because Chris Hinton is on the ground and he sort of, they didn't get it. And you could see he was gassed. I mean, you can see it was almost like, oh, thank God.
Right. Yeah.
Thank
we
God.
want to win this game, but I also need to breathe here. So thank God we're off the field.
That jumped out at me as I was watching the play. Like, man, he was like, oh, thank you. Those guys they couldn't get it. They couldn't catch their breath. They were right back on the field for a time. So
I mean, when the offense goes 3 and out like that, gets no momentum, not only are they not getting a blow, they're not feeling good about where the game's at, right? They know Rutgers has got the ball in their court. You're not changing field position, right? It's kind of one of those things. You're doing your part, and it's part of team sports, right? You got to pick each other up at different times, but it's one of those things like, come on, we need some help. And when you sit down for a minute and a half, and then it's 3rd down, and they're saying, defense, get ready, right? You're back up, and it's like, we got to go do this thing again. But they stepped up when they needed to, and kept Rutgers at bay.
All right, so we are going to take a break now, and when we come back on the other side, we are going to get into the offense. And started out really, really well, and then, as you know, the rushing road got a lot tougher, got a lot bumpier as they got deeper into the game. So we'll get to a break, be back on the other side with more Jack Miller Between the Lines here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, The Ticket. Jack, before we get back in and talk a little offense, why did you tell the folks about the Highland Group?
Yeah, Highland Group, privately held, full-service insurance brokerage, doing property casualty, business insurance, employee benefits, and personal lines as well. Anybody have an insurance question out there or like some different options, feel free to reach out. Highland.com, HYLANT.com.
All right, so Jack, offensively, we know that things, they started to go downhill when it came to the running game, especially in the second half of this contest. But we're going to start off with one of the better plays. Michigan, I'm sure you've noted, they get in the red zone, they get in goal line situations. They love to run their duo play. And to to get there. I believe this was their second. Yeah, this is their second score of the game.
Yep.
They go duo on first and goal early in the second quarter to score a touchdown.
Yeah, early in the game when the running game was clicking, one of the reasons why you'll see here for those that can see, if you can't, it's okay. The left tackle Hayes and Honingford at tight end on this duo play. You're just trying to get double teams downhill and up to the linebackers as quickly as you can, and they bring a guy in motion to kick out whatever edge pressure might be there, right? Mm-hmm. Hayes and Honingford take the defensive end and run them. They cave them all the way down. There's probably 5-6 yards of just green grass. I think that's Hassan Haskins, right? Running the ball. Yeah. And there's just all this green grass for them because of the movement that they get. Anytime you get that much wash on the line of scrimmage and open things up like that, even if you don't get the linebacker blocked, there's so much space for an athlete like Haskins to make a guy miss. And all you need there is 6 yards for the touchdown. Just really well executed up front.
Yeah. And so, unfortunately, that kind of thing was few and far between as the game went on, Jack. Part of that is the attention that Rutgers was paying to stop the running game. So
right.
let's give them credit. The other part of it, though, Jack, was there were some differences execution for Michigan in this game compared to others. I think, and you can tell me this as an offensive lineman, I think there's a rhythm to the run game too. That the repetition allows you to get in sync, to get a rhythm.
Yes.
And when you're off the field, after 3 plays, those times where maybe the execution isn't as crisp as you want, those become more glaring because you just don't get as many opportunities to get it right.
Yeah, that's right. It's a snowball effect, right? You run the ball on first down, it doesn't go your way. Now it's 2nd and 10. They're loading up the box. You got to throw. You throw a quick pass, it's incomplete, whatever. Now it's 3rd and 10, and you've taken 25 seconds off the clock, right? You can't get in a good rhythm to do that. And it was interesting. I think in the second half, the game got more stale, right? And at a time when you need to bust off something big and get the ball back in your court, get some momentum in your favor, you got to continue to be creative, right? And so, the first 3 games and even in the first half for a little bit, you saw all sorts of action in the backfield, right? There's all sorts of counter action and holding up linebackers and fake a jet, then hand a jet off, right? Do some different things on the running game. It looked like as the course of the game went on, when you needed to go do more of those things, in my opinion, be creative, throw some wrinkles in, throw some different formations and trades and all sorts of stuff in to confuse the defense or catch them off guard. The more we needed to do that stuff, for whatever reason, it seemed we retreated and went to just kind of basic plays right up the middle, not all that creative. And it came back to hurt us a little bit as the game went on.
All right, so let's start off in the first half, though, and show you an example of maybe some, a different thing. Like this was really, really tough on the center, and I saved this play for you to talk us through. All right, what do you do here, Jack? So there was a D-line slant, and your center gets swam. Vestatis gets swam here. And it was one of those things where, man, if you weren't anticipating the slant, this was a hard thing to contend with. And so I want you to talk us through what you're supposed to do here as a center yourself. 4:55 left in the second quarter, 2nd and 7 here. Jack, Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, ball's in the middle of the field here. So there's really not a lot of movement from the safeties prior to the snap. And a lot of times you can tell based on safeties cheating down, if there's an extra guy on one side or the other, just to keep it simple, hey, there might be a blitz from that side. There might be things coming. So you can kind of anticipate that. On this, there's really no indication. They do a great job hiding the safety blitz here. And so there's no indication from the offensive line that a blitz might be coming, right? So it's just a really good play by the nose guard, right? He goes right over the top of Vestatis. Vestatis doesn't get his second foot in the ground quick enough to be able to catch movement. He's leaning forward too much, anticipating that the defensive lineman's just going to be right in front of him, keeps his head down too long, doesn't get his second step in the ground to redirect. And the nose guard just makes a good play, right? He swims right over the top of him. The blitz is not anticipated. It kind of catches everybody off guard. And look, those guys are on scholarship too, as they say, right? The guy, just goes and makes a good play. gets right over the top, and you got to tip your cap to those guys. Sometimes they're going to go make plays too.
Right. All right. So then, as we get into the second half now, and then just another example of something that we didn't see. Something that we maybe an assignment that we didn't see missed, because these guys, they've been so precise. They've been so precise. And when you get so few plays, it's getting an opportunity to get back on track is a lot tougher. So here's one, Jack, where you remember we talked a couple of weeks ago. It might have been the Washington game. And I think it was Stuber coming around, getting around a spill,
Yep.
right? You remember the play that I'm talking about?
I do.
And so when this one
patient.
came up, when this one came up, I was like, okay, this was just a sign that the guys were just out of sync. And this is fourth quarter, 9:38. This is 1st and 10. Michigan needing to get a little momentum here.
Yeah, box is loaded up. You got 2 tight ends in, plus a fullback. Really, you got 3 tight ends in, and you're just running power over to the left side here. They do a pretty good job caving the left side of the offense, or I'm sorry, the defensive line down. And when the guard pulls around, we'll see here one more time. When the guard pulls around, he tries to insert himself inside of the tight end in the kick out block. And there's just not a whole lot of room there for him to get downhill on anybody. What he should do is spill around the corner. Once that kick out happens and there's really not enough, he should sneak around that corner there. And then the first man who comes up is supposed to be his, right? You say the wide receiver misses the safety here. You'd like to see the wide receiver cut his split down a little bit to give himself a better chance at getting to that safety. From that position there, he's never going to be able to get a safety who's coming downhill like that, right? But if the guard pulls around, and I think that's Zinner, right? Yeah, if Zinner pulls around, is just a little more patient, gets outside of that, he probably picks off the safety. And by the time the linebacker, he'll get caught up in all that wash and won't be able to catch up with a running back like Haskins back there, right? But to your point, it's just out of sync, right? They're not flowing at this point in the game. There's no indication that he should pull around before the play, right? A lot of times they're looking at keys to say, hey, look, it looks like they're going to crash, so this would bring me around here. They just don't look in rhythm right now. And when you go 3 and out, you get maybe 2 runs in a series, and then you're sitting on the bench while Rutgers is moving the ball down the field. Just hard to get a flow going.
There was that roughing the passer play. And first of all, you can talk about how the guy came free. So I want to get into the particulars of the play from an offensive line standpoint. But I feel like now, watching the game over again, I feel like there was a before the hit and there was an after the hit with Cade McNamara. I don't think there's any question about it. That he was different after he took that shot. And so, pivotal moment in the game. Let's break down how it happened, first of all. Remember, he stood in there and delivered the ball. He stood in there and delivered a good ball. So want to highlight that too. But it impacted him, or at least it seemed to.
Yeah, give him credit for hanging in there, right? He knows he's going to take a big hit there, and he waits just in the nick of time. He waits for Sandstro coming over the middle there, and he puts it right on the money for a big gain. So you got to give him credit for that. He hangs in there. He's a tough kid, takes a hit on this. 1st and 10, not necessarily a known passing situation right in the middle of the field, but based on the formation and the blitz that comes here from Rutgers, I think they had an idea that they wanted to throw the ball here. And all it is, you got pressure coming off the left side. The left defensive end and the defensive lineman on that side slant in. It's just a basic twist. The nose guard from the other side goes all the way around. Now, when Hayes is at left tackle, he doesn't do a good enough job keeping the edge rusher at bay. So he gets too much penetration. And so then at that point, it's on Keegan playing left guard and the Stardust to switch this off, which is really, really hard to do. Rutgers got a good defensive line. They get penetration here, and they can't pass off this twist very easily. So the nose guard from the other side of the formation, on the other side of the Stardust, just loops all the way around. And by the time Keegan tries to pass off his guy to the Stardust, he can't. He's too far in the backfield. The nose guard loops around him, and nobody can get back to him. So Cade's sitting there wide, exposed. There's all sorts of green grass in front of him. And by that time, You see the nose guard gets around the corner there, and Keegan can't get to him in time. He gets a big hit on Cade.
Yeah, that was a tough one, man. You're so focused on, man, that was a big ball he delivered. And wow, he sprung back up and, got back up from the shot, right? So you're impressed by that. But I think it affected him, Jack. I think it affected him as the game went on because he wasn't stepping into many throws after that.
Yeah, no, it certainly could have. I think anytime you take a big hit like that, that's what you're taught to do as a defender, right? Is make the quarterback pay for hanging in the pocket there like that, which they did. But that sits in the back of your mind throughout the course of the game, right? Am I going to take another blow like that? And you get happy feet, you get out of the pocket too quick, you lose your mechanics, right? After you take a hit like that, you jeopardize your mechanics. And as the game went on, he did not look as clean and sharp, certainly as he did in the first half.
All right, so we will close things out with the film, talking about how Jack Miller was right. I saved this one for last. I saved this one for last to give you your due, because you guys might remember it was Northern Illinois. There was a play where they left the play side defensive end unblocked. Now, here's the part where I was right, Jack. This is the one part where I was right on this play. The guy defensive end wasn't getting red. So he didn't get red, but you were right. He was unblocked on purpose.
Right.
But he was not getting red. It's a straight give all the way. I think, what did they call it? A bash play? I asked about it though. I said,
did you?
Guys leaving this guy? Because it was the second time we saw it. I was like, okay, they must be doing this on purpose.
Right.
Doing this on purpose. And sure enough, said, okay, let me tell Jack he was right.
Well, I appreciate that. But I had a feeling, I had a suspicion on that. I mean, I like Blake Corum's speed against any defensive linemen any day of the week, right? And if you got the defense out leveraged like they do in this play, let him just outrun the guy. And so I thought that might be the case. I'm glad we've confirmed that now.
Yeah, we have confirmed it, Jack. That's why I'm bringing it up. I said, you know what? This is what we do.
Thank you.
When Jack or Devin or Al or Vance, they're right, we're going to highlight them being right. This is why you need to have more than one voice, all right? So I mean, it's unique. You don't see this very often. Normally, you leave a guy unblocked, you're reading him.
Yeah.
And not on this play.
No. And, the interesting part about this play, too, we talked about it earlier, right? It's late in the game, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The offense is totally stalled out. You need to get creative at this point, right? You need to do something different. You can't keep banging your head against the wall, running the same inside zones and duos that aren't working, and Rutgers has keyed in. So what do? They basically just go to this outside zone to the right. The tight end doesn't block the defensive end. The right tackle, Stuber, I think, pins him down. And the tight end goes up, releases to the outside linebacker. They just hand the ball off. Corum's running at the defensive end, just trying to run around him, which certainly he can do as speedy as he is. And they got great leverage. The tight end misses the defensive lineman. He goes up and pins the outside linebacker. The wide receiver blocks the cornerback. You got Blake Corum one-on-one with the safety who's 20 yards deep at this point in the game, right? So it's just a really well-designed play. I like the creativity. I like doing something a little different here. These are the kinds of things we saw in the first 3 games from Michigan. And for some reason, they abandoned them, as the game went on against Rutgers. But it was good that they pulled something like this out to get a little something going here, take some time off the clock late in the game when you're trying to win.
Yeah, I mean, 12 plays. 12 plays. They had 12 plays is what I keep coming back to. You got to sustain some drives to get to some things. And then there are some plays that were going to hit outside, that should have hit outside, that didn't hit outside. So it was a sludge and a trudge of a game. And hopefully, again, they were able to get some rhythm, get back in sync. Because here's what we know, Jack. I don't care what you're running. You run outside, you run inside, whatever you want to do. You are not going to just run it down Wisconsin's throat. No. That is not going to happen.
Right.
I'm willing to bet a pretty clear amount on that you're not just going to beat Wisconsin, running the football 70, 80% of the time.
No, first off, you're going to have to throw the ball, right? You're going to have to make them respect you throwing the ball. But even separate from that, running the football, you're going to have to get creative how you do it, right? This offense in the first 3 games was throwing all sorts of looks out there. There's all sorts of motion in the backfield, unique things that they were doing that I think caught people off guard. Now, were they owning the line of scrimmage, moving people? Were they in sync? Absolutely. But they were doing things around that to help create that environment, right? And so they're going to have to get crafty to go beat a Wisconsin team because, to your point, Wisconsin thrives on that kind of stuff. If you want to just show up and go belly to belly with them, it's going to be really tough to do. You're going to have to help yourself out, different formations, play actions, motions, things like that to keep them on their heels, because if they can just line up and we can just line up, score might be 10-7 at the end. Somebody's going to sneak away with a win.
I believe they're the number 1 rush defense in the country. Kyran Williams, who is a really good back, had 18 carries for 33 yards last week for Notre Dame. So they didn't lose that game on defense. They lost that game. Wisconsin lost that game on offense. Graham Mertz was horrible. He was terrible. We can hope that the same will be true versus Michigan, but he's at home. He's at home this time. So a little better chance that maybe he can find something, maybe find a comfort zone on his home field than on the road. So, yeah, they definitely are going to have to get back in sync offensively. Going to have to find something in the passing game. And, maybe that will affect their opportunity to get the running game back on track. So,
yeah, there's a correlation between the two. There's no doubt about it. But if Michigan can get their run games to be steady and to be consistent, it doesn't have to bust off. It doesn't have to be one of these 300-yard performances from an individual like we've seen, right? But they just have to be able to rely on it, right? You can't go backwards. You got to get 2-3 yards a pop, because in a game like this, as that game goes on, that wears on a defense, right? That 2 or 3 yard becomes 5 or 6, and all of a sudden it busts off for 15. And then boom, Blake Corum's got that breakaway speed. He's gone for a touchdown. They have to be steady. They have to be consistent with it. If they can do that, it'll open up some other things for them, and I like their chances. But it's going to start and end with the running game for them.
Gotcha. Well, Jack, as always, my friend, a wealth of information and perspective. We appreciate you, buddy. And hopefully when we come back next week, we're talking about another W.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam. Go Blue, man.